backdoor deals that we maybe aren't aware of in the public, but when it comes to an election, it comes down to the voters, and the voters decide.
Okay, now we're going to go back to Amy Wu with a question.
Question that's specific to Dennis Donohue. When you were mayor of Salinas, you bravely attempted to stand up a private firm called Green Vehicles that created Vision electric cars. The effort turned out to be a financial flop for the city, mainly because no one did the proper amount of due diligence, which included knowing how the California Energy Commission dispersed money. What did you learn from this experience, and what would you do differently next time a similar opportunity presented itself?
Well, I want to thank you for attributing all that power to me to do that all by myself.
Before we start, there's a few, we're going to sprinkle in a few individual questions here and there, so this is one of them.
Sure, no, that's fine. As I recall, that was a December 1, 2009 council meeting, and it was a unanimous vote by the council. And it turned out, in retrospect, there were some elements of the staff report. The information we provided turned out not to be correct. And I think, had it succeeded, we'd have been brilliant, and it didn't work. But there's a price for leadership. We were trying to make something happen. We were trying to create some manufacturing jobs. We certainly, in Salinas, have had a commitment to our quality of life, our environment, the environment, and we felt Green Vehicles was a step in the right direction. But I think we learned that there's a better way to approach investments as it relates to municipality. What's important to note is we did expand our retail sales tax base, we did get downtown moving, and again, we've got 14 startups sitting across the street, so we want a heck of a lot more than we lost.
Okay, so Sarah, if you have an individual question, that would be good. If not, you can float a general question to the panel for all three.
Can I ask one more general question first?
Absolutely.
I want to touch on short-term rentals, which is something that we expect the next board to regulate and come up with an ordinance. And we see people in District 4 within city limits and unincorporated county renting out their homes because they can't afford their homes otherwise in this climate, but then also the pressure that short-term rentals are taking otherwise affordable units off the long-term rental market. So how do you regulate it? Do you allow it at all? And what kind of numbers do you look at then, and how do they get dispersed around the county?
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, the county is looking at this right now. They're in the inland portion of the county. I believe short-term rentals are permissible. You have to get a permit, and there's a process to follow. From what I understand, people may not be following that process. In the coastal area, all of the various pieces were not tied into a neat, tidy bow, so it's actually not allowed. What we're looking at is how to allow for visitors to the area to have a home-like experience, and then also to try to limit the number of short-term rentals that happen in any given neighborhood or area so that you don't commercialize a residential area. So it's a balance. There are many counties that have done this, and so I think really looking for the revenue that can come in from it, but also not to destroy residential neighborhoods.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think that's the right approach. We have to respect property rights, but we have to make sure as best we're able that neighborhoods can preserve their individual characteristics. And I think it is important that there be some government oversight. Folks who wander into the area, you got to make sure they're not wandering into the residential equivalent of the Bates Motel, and so you want to provide some protections. But I think the county is going down on the right road on this, and I think they're being deliberate is the right approach. And my understanding is they expect to get an ordinance and to vote out in front of the board fairly quickly, and I think that's the right approach.
Okay, Alex?
I absolutely think that's the wrong approach. I think that we need to figure out how San Francisco just had a recent measure on a company called Airbnb, which does short-term rentals. They let it up to the voters. They let the voters decide if we're going to allow short-term rentals or not. I think that would be a fair democracy. I'm a little biased in this subject because I do make money on short-term rentals. I mean, that's something that I would talk about affordable housing here in Monterey County. I bought my home in 2006 at the age of 24 for an astronomical amount of money. And in order to subsidize some of that money, I have to have short-term rentals. So we can't make policies that are going to make people like me lose their homes to the banks and whatnot because of our high cost of living here in the Monterey Peninsula. So I strongly believe that we need to either have the city ordinances, or if we're going to have a county ordinance, it should be left to the voters to decide whether we should have short-term rentals.
Okay, so now we're going to move to Melissa Hernandez.
What are your views on medical and recreational marijuana, and how do you think it should be regulated?
Okay.
Thank you. That is a topic that the county is also working on right now. In terms of medical marijuana, there are important medical benefits that that marijuana can provide, and particularly now with the way that the products can be refined to take out the high, that's usually associated with marijuana. I think it's good science, and we need to embrace it. We're looking at regulations for the growing and distributing of medical marijuana to make sure that the land use and law enforcement issues are contemplated. And I think I'm confident that the planning department is looking at those. We should have an ordinance fairly soon. Again, this is a potential revenue stream that can help with the compliance on the regulations for medical marijuana, as well as possible funding streams for other problems we need to solve in the county. It's also a good framework for if marijuana is recreational use is legalized in November, we should be in a good place if we have good regulations.
Okay, all right. Yes.
I am, personally, I'm not in favor of recreational marijuana, but there's probably a strong likelihood that it's coming. The medical marijuana issue is one that city by city is important, and that's currently going on, that local cities pass an ordinance rather than leave it up to the state to impose a one-size-fits-all. So you're seeing city after city do that. And I think Delray Oaks has set a good example. They've created a consensus that includes law enforcement, a strong, respected operator, and I think they're doing it right. Likewise, the Seaside City Council was not interested in having a dispensary in their city. And so I think that's as it should be. Each city should decide what suits best for their community. And I think the county, this is a unique county on this issue because of where we sit in the agricultural world. To be continued, I'm sure.
Okay, Alex.
Well, the first step is to stop prosecuting it. And we are wasting hundreds of thousands of dollars prosecuting marijuana right here in Monterey County. Our district attorney is focused on it. He's focused on it, and so is our sheriff. And they're going out and they're spending a lot of money prosecuting marijuana. And if you get to my website and you read my website, you'll see an example of a story of prosecution of marijuana and how it's happening so vastly in our county. And at this time, in between Santa Cruz County and San Luis Obispo County, we need to immediately stop prosecuting people for marijuana over permits. These are the permit issue. So that's our number one priority, is to focus and have the district attorney stop focusing and spending money on prosecuting marijuana. I also think marijuana has worked in other communities like Denver and Portland, Oregon, which is a $44 billion industry. We could use that money here in Monterey County, as we're going to see a $16 million deficit on the budget in the upcoming year. So we could use that money to increase our services in the county, including social services and stuff for our youth to do.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we're going to move to Susanna Vasquez. And Mike, you have a specific question, or are you going to do a general?
I'm going to ask a specific question to Mr. Miller.
Okay.
You told another publication that if elected, you would try to shut down the DA's office. Why and what would you replace that office with in order to prosecute crimes?
Never have I ever advocated to shut down the district attorney. That is a misleading and false statement. I've never said anything about that. Obviously, the district attorney serves a vital role in our community by prosecuting serious offenders, people who have committed violent crimes in our county, and he needs to focus on those type of crimes. We need to get off the streets, the violent gang members, people with violent history, and we need to focus our money on that. Last year, I watched the district attorney, the board of supervisors, including Jane Parker, vote to give the district attorney a $2 million raise. And it's something that I will never forget going to this meeting and watching them give somebody who is wasting our money prosecuting marijuana, prosecuting small crimes, and we keep on giving him a raise. And we need to stop giving him a raise until he starts focusing, his department starts focusing on the real issues here in Monterey County, and which include youth homicide, adult homicide, and violent offenders.
Okay. I guess we'll swing back to Amy with another question.
That's a specific question now to Jane Parker. 4 out of 5 mayors in the district are supporting your opponent, Dennis Donohue. This signifies that the cities want change. What is your response to this?
If you look at the mayors in question, what you'll see is that they are proponents of uncontrolled, unquestioned growth and development in the county, and or subject to political pressure from the same development special interests who are supporting my opponent.
Okay. Simple. All right, so let's go with Sarah.
I have another question for Supervisor Parker. It came to light a few months ago that although you had told your constituents and the public that you earned a bachelor's degree at the Monterey Institute and the Middlebury Institute, that you had not in fact completed your college program and earned a degree. And how can you explain that discrepancy to voters? There's a lot of concern and I think a loss of trust.
Thank you. Yes, well, the reason that I said that I had earned a bachelor's degree is because I believed I had. I had followed my advisor's recommendations, completed the coursework that I thought was necessary to complete the degree. In fact, I knew that I didn't have the credits to graduate in the spring. I had to stay for a summer session, and so I completed that session. I thought I was done. I went on. And it really was only in the last couple of months when there was an inquiry that the Monterey Institute let me know that in response to that inquiry, they were going to have to say that I had not earned the full number of credits for my degree. That was the first I knew about it. And so I think as soon as I learned it, I corrected all the documents I could get hold of, and I'm working with the Institute right now to learn what happened and to see what can be done to rectify the situation and possibly earn my bachelor's degree.
Okay.
Can I chime in one comment?
No. Sorry. So let's go with Melissa Hernandez with another question.
This is Mr. Miller. You talked about youth violence, but can you say a couple examples on what you would do that would actually help that issue?
This is specific to you, Alex.
Yes. Out of my group of friends, not one person smoked cigarettes. And that was because during my generation, there was a huge push in ad campaign. And the ad campaign to stop smoking was a successful ad campaign, and they have gotten down the number of people smoking cigarettes. We can do the same, and San Francisco and other communities have done the same, where they put billboards up and around communities that have graveyards that say in Spanish and English, this is where your kid ends up in a gang. We have to make an ethos argument to our parents. We have to tell the parents and make them aware that if their youth son or daughter is going to be involved in a gang, the ending result is not going to be pretty. And once we can do that, we will see the gang violence go down. I'm also for starting getting more money for after-school programs. We have some of the lowest social services available to our youth in any county in the state. We need to have more after-school programs, more parks and playgrounds and redevelopment areas. But my main focus is focusing on an ad campaign and having the district attorney working with our social services and the sheriff to promote youth violence.
Okay, thanks. So I'm going to throw one in here now, and it's going to seem like it's directed at Dennis Donohue, but it's actually I'd like all our candidates to talk about it. There has been a big push to marry our rich Salinas Valley $9 billion ag economy with high-tech Silicon Valley. Yes, Dennis has been a big proponent of that. But to date, other than the Western Growers, an industry lobbying group, moving into the new Taylor building, I am not aware of a single new startup job. Correct me if all three of you know any different. I do know, however, that a lot of industry consultants have made a lot of money, including a guy named John Hartnett, who from the city of Salinas alone has exceeded $900,000 in fees over the last 5 years. So my question to, we're going to start with Jane, but my question is, where are we with this really actually neat dream, but it seems to be so far a failed effort, and if you get reelected, will you continue to push on the county level for the marriage of ag and tech?
Thank you. Yes, I think whether it's ag tech or the jobs that are envisioned on the former Fort Ord to come from education and research, the thought that there may be some marine science and applied technology applications that could come. What we hear from the consultants and the businesses who come here to take a look about locating, what they say is what we need to do is remove the abandoned buildings on Fort Ord. That's not necessarily true for the Salinas area, but we need to have the kinds of neighborhoods and housing types that the workforce can afford to live in, and the walkable, bikeable, connected to trails and nature environment that the workforce wants. Before they locate here, those are the kinds of infrastructure needs they have. And so those are the nuts and bolts that I've been working on to get in place on the ground so that we have the kind of environment that people want to come and provide those jobs.
Okay, Dennis?
I think the Ag Tech Initiative has been a terrific success. And the reality is the number you quote is not for an individual, it's for an organization. And the city and the council has renewed that particular contracting agreement, which also has earned the city, by some estimate, close to $8 to $9 million of awareness, or the equivalent advertising equivalency. And I think it's important to note that there are no other consultants that the city has hired, and probably even the county, that is busy building a $50 to $100 million investment fund to turn around and to invest in the Ag Tech Initiative. The reality is there are 14 Ag Tech companies sitting across the street, and that is not a conversation that anyone would have expected 3 or 4 years ago. And I think the simple fact that this initiative continues to have support of ag leaders, that all the major initiatives, and I'm part of this world and I understand it, and these are names you may or may not be familiar with, the Mixing Bowl, Roger Royce's, everybody is beating a path to Salinas thanks to that initiative.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up with our former mayor. So let me ask you, say 14, and we're talking about the incubator businesses, are we not? That are developing at the Western Growers, is that
correct?
Okay. So again, it's I think we're getting to the point where it's not an issue of whether this is a good idea. I'm just wondering, in your role as former mayor, if you had it to play over again, would you say would you have poised this as we're going to do this and it's going to happen tomorrow, which is kind of the way it was laid out, as versus this is going to be an evolutionary thing that's going to play out over 5, maybe 10 years. If you had anything to do over again,
it was never laid out as it was going to happen tomorrow. In fact, I still remember the May Chow interview on KSTW that we talked about over a several-year process. And I think what's important to note, the goal is to stand up an entrepreneurial culture. And the reality is 90% of those companies are going to fail. But what you don't see is the level of tech activity that's going on with the major ag corporations in the valley who are also dealing direct. So the simple fact is we have succeeded in becoming a hub and putting the Salinas Valley on the map. We were the freshener center of the planet before this started, and we are now one of the centers of gravity for the Ag Tech dialogue. So we've succeeded, and I want to reiterate: no other consultant has worked with industry leaders to create an investment fund to pour dollars back in this community, and so I think that is very, very significant. So I think it was a great initiative, and again, leadership is making decisions, advocate, and support.
Okay, we're going to let Alex weigh in on this. Again, it was kind of a frankly convoluted question. I apologize for that. But again, we're talking about the investment money that the city of Salinas and the county have been putting into the attempted marriage between ag and tech, and whether or not we've actually seen any jobs develop from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've seen a small amount of jobs. I think we need to see more jobs in this sector, and I think we're going to get more jobs as the technology comes out of CSUMB. I don't agree with Dennis Donohue on many of the issues, but one issue that I do agree with him on is that we are in desperate need for a better technology system here in the Monterey Peninsula, faster internet, faster speeds so that we can become a leader in the ag tech industry. Right now we have a lot of problems around these issues, and if we're going to become a pioneer in this agriculture and tech industry, we must focus on getting faster, adequate internet, faster, and you start tapping into the Silicon Valley, and since we're such close neighbors to them, we can surely get the top internet here in Monterey, so I'm a big supporter of that.
Okay. So we are going to now, help me out, question Jane. Susanna.
The following question comes from the audience. What actions or plans do you have to improve the delivery of an integrated healthcare reform in our county?
Okay.
I was pleased to be part of an initiative that, in advance of the Affordable Care Act, expanded the eligibility and really gave people a chance to access health care in advance of the Affordable Care Act coming, and it made a smooth transition. We have tens of thousands of people who are left out of the Affordable Care Act, and we have an initiative in the county to make a certain number of healthcare services available to them. Another thing that we're looking at the county level is really making sure the integration between our county health department clinics and the Tivadad Medical Center, as well as the other hospitals in the area, make for a seamless experience for people going back and forth between clinics and hospitals if they happen to need to do that. It's really critical that people get the follow-up care they need so that they're not bouncing back into the hospital more quickly than they should be.
Okay, Dennis?
You know, this is the social service equivalent of there's an iceberg waiting for the Titanic. The reality is this is an area, and one of the reasons I'm wearing the green ribbon is it's National Mental Health Month, and I think that is a strategic intersection that we need to be looking at in terms of veterans, homeless, domestic violence, youth violence, random violence, but in looking at it as a strategic place to plant a flag, and you look at the entire system and network, you know, you've got reports of public health nurse caseloads of 1 to 136. The system is siloed, and the fact of the matter is the county is underperforming here, and the reality is it is an area that is in dire need of reform and reorganization and integration. And all of this speaks to why we have to pursue economic opportunities that expand our tax base, because this is not a $4 or $5 million conversation. This is a hundreds of millions of dollar conversation, and believe me, there is work to do.
Okay, Alex?
You know, as the population increases here in the Monterey Peninsula, I think it's important or a good idea to look at possibly another healthcare provider on or forward, which would bring good paying jobs to nurses, people who work in the healthcare industry. It would be a good opportunity for people for CSUMB's nursing program to advance. So I think that the county should be looking at opportunities on forward for healthcare. In terms of the question, we really need to look at putting more money into our departments, into the Department of Social Services, Department of Health, within the county, so that we can explore how we're going to help more people who are not insured and how we're going to get them the medical coverage they need. If we need to have more clinics, and that's something that the county should explore. Instead of, right now we're spending a huge amount of the budget, and until that, we could possibly get clinics that might be a cheaper cost to the county budget.
Okay, we're going to go to Amy Wu.
Considering that the county is faced with a $16 million budget deficit in the coming fiscal year for 2016-17, what is your stance on budget reductions for underperforming departments?
Okay.
Well, $16 million is a lot of money, but having said that, with the county budget being over $1 billion, what we're talking about is about 1.5% of the budget. Still, it is a tough budget time. We're really looking at how we can maintain services. The county has weathered the Great Recession and other economic challenges and has been able to maintain services, retain staff, and ensure a healthy reserve. Former Supervisor Luke Calcano and several current and retired county financial staff members support my reelection because of my fiscal prudence and have called me the board's financial watchdog because I ask questions and think long-term about the county's health. In addition to looking at cuts and efficiencies, which we do all the time, we're also developing new revenue streams that we talked a little bit about, potentially from medical marijuana, short-term rentals, an initiative to develop and reinvest millions of dollars each year into local green energies such as solar and wind.
Okay, Dennis.
The reality is it's not a $16 million shortfall, because if you can easily handle that $16 million, then you should be able to, in that $1.2 billion, find the $18 million the sheriff's going to need, the $5 to $8 million shortfall in the park system, and as I just said, in terms of public health and the social services, hundreds of millions of dollars. That's not the real number. And the fact of the matter is you get back into a corner when you have to pass a budget and you get through a help me make it through the night mode, i.e. pass the budget. And it's very predictable what's going to happen. You're not going to fill positions, you're going to cut programs. This is why it is important to pursue an economic game changer, expand the tax base, and there is no massive redevelopment by the 4 mayors that were discussed that are endorsing. All they want to do is fulfill the promise, replace those 14,000 jobs and those 8,000 housing units to expand the tax base so we can meet the aspirational budget of the county, which is actually much bigger than the $16 million that's being discussed.
Okay.
Deficit's deficit. If it's 1%, it's still a deficit, and our supervisors aren't allocating our budget properly. And that's one of the reasons why I'm on this campaign trail. I'm on this campaign trail so that we can properly allocate the budget and give the departments the services and don't promote giving money to departments that are failing within our county. Once again, I'll say my story again, that last year I watched them give a $2 million raise to the district attorney, and I saw the wasteful spending out of the department. I've seen wasteful spending in multiple different areas of Monterey. Currently, Monterey County doesn't issue permits. We can make money from issuing permits. We can issue money from our marijuana taxation. Colorado has done a wonderful job with taxing people who use it for recreation and people who use it for medical, so we can expand our tax base. But we need to have more innovators here and around the peninsula so we can create more jobs and more income here coming into the Monterey.
Okay, I'm going to set the question in here now. It involves the county a few years ago reaching an agreement with the city of Salinas to basically bolster and support Salinas' downtown. As you may know, Salinas' downtown has been thriving, and that is a great thing. However, there was a written agreement, and the county actually, at the end of the day, decided to basically move out to the Capital One facility, which some people think may have been a dreadful mistake. And so what I'd like to start with, and ask all 3 of you, given the fact that a lot of these agencies, I believe even including the Department of Elections, will be out at the Capital One site, which is not the easiest to get to and probably not the most customer-friendly site. My question is, does the county, given the county's impact on downtown Salinas and Salinas, was the idea of moving out to the Capital One site and buying the Capital One site a good idea? And I know, Jane, you voted on that, so why don't we start with you?
Okay, thank you. And I will just say that the MOU between the city and the county is still in place, and we still are working on cooperating with the downtown. The county had the opportunity to buy a couple of good-sized buildings for a very favorable price out of Showing Place. This is a better deal for taxpayers. It actually would have been fiscally irresponsible not to take the opportunity to consolidate county functions on a business campus that the county owns. The county's annual lease costs are nearly $9 million. That's real money that could be being spent on critical services like mental health, substance abuse programs, temporary shelters, positive programs for youth, you name it. There were concerns raised that the county was removing large numbers of staff from the downtown area. That's not actually the case, although you still hear people, some people talking as if that is what happened. I was pleased to hear recently about a chamber report that Salinas downtown businesses are thriving and plan to continue hiring. I'm also pleased to say that the Shilling Place purchase is allowing the county to have its first on-site child care center due to open later this year.
Okay, Dennis?
I'm pleased to say the Chamber of Commerce endorsed me, and one of the reasons they endorsed me was the incumbent of the office voted to move out to Shilling Place. And I work out there, and it is a terrible location, and the community came together and asked their representative not to do it. I also find it a source of concern that there were other bids on that building, companies that could bring jobs to the area. And the simple fact is downtown Salinas is doing better. There's starting to be apartments built downtown. And the way, and interestingly enough, the way walkable communities is where there's density and where there's city center growth. So the county just simply does not have a good record of managing facilities. And the whole idea of a government campus was a critical part of the thinking of revitalizing downtown. So I'm dead set against it. I also think it is not the right place to deliver services in terms of accessibility. So I just think I thought it was the wrong call then, and I still think it's the wrong call.
Okay, Alex?
Yep, as we see a large problem with our budget, I as well did not think that was a wise move for the county to be placing so much money into a facility and then placing equal money to fix the facility. I think that we could have allocated the money into a better area, into a better facility that was more prep and didn't spend so much time wasting resources on that facility. I would like to see the money go into a better productive area. We have warehouses, we have big buildings here in Salinas that are being sold at a cheaper price. The county paid a premium for that. And when we talk about being fiscally responsible, that decision just simply wasn't fiscally responsible for the high price we paid for that building.
Okay, so we're...
Could I respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely. How about a 30-second rebuttal?
Just a couple of things. The county was able to buy the Shilling Place buildings for $13 million. It had previously been sold for $63 million. We got a very good deal. Mr. Donohue says there were other bids on that building. We took that into account and said if there are any people who want to come forward, any private business that wants to buy this building, feel free. We'll give you 6 months while we figure out what we're doing. And no one came forward despite the fact that these kinds of allegations were made. And when we work on the MOU, one of the things the county had said was, we're willing to do our part, but you need to have more housing downtown so you really have that mixed-use walkability. And the city is starting to work on that.
Okay, and since you brought Dennis's name up, he gets 30 seconds as well.
Well, I would simply say there were offers prior to the move. The county continues that simply they do not have a good record in terms of managing costs on facilities. And the other thing, having mentioned cybersecurity and 10,000 jobs, that was one of the perfect buildings to house the influx of that type of worker base in the community. So and again, it was one of those things, and it's interesting to note the business community understood everything Jane just said and said, you may know the price, but you don't know the value of being downtown. So it just by every measure, it just is not a move that makes sense financially, service-wise, and frankly, given some of the opportunities that I think are clearly in front of us, taking that building off the table was not a good idea.
Okay, so with this, we're going to go to our last question, and that honor goes to Sarah Rubin. Before that, though, I would like to just again thank our question team with Amy Loom from the Californian, Sarah from the Monterey County Weekly, Melissa Hernandez from Univision, and Susanna Vasquez, the editor of El Sol. Could we give them a round of applause? Okay, so Sarah, take it away.
We could do 5 more of these to get through all the questions. But I will ask about Natividad Medical Center. There has been a fairly serious exploration on multiple occasions at the county to look at possibly merging Natividad with Salinas Memorial Hospital was the one that was seriously discussed, but there are other opportunities for that, and for now it has remained a standalone hospital. Do you want it to remain standalone, or what are the other options that you might want to see and why over the next 5 to 10 years?
Thank you. Good question. What we know in the current healthcare environment is that it is going to be more and more difficult for standalone hospitals to make it. So we are looking for opportunities to partner with appropriate entities. We were beginning some discussions. We've actually started discussions a couple of times with Salinas Valley Memorial Hospital, sometimes when they're on the downswing and sometimes when they're on the upswing. The last time was when we were both in competition for the Level 2 Trauma Center, and Salinas Valley asked us to just wait until that process was over. What we're looking at now is sort of a gradual, incremental level of cooperation between the medical staff to begin with, and then possibly some administrative cooperation and reduction of duplication of services and functions, and a level of cooperation growing gradually together rather than some sort of takeover or merger.
Okay, Dennis?
Certainly the whole healthcare environment requires keeping an open mind, and ultimately you have to be guided what's best for the public at large. You know, if it could remain standalone, I think it would be terrific, because it's a really unique asset in the community and a great community player. And frankly, if we had a tax base, and there's great pressures that every public entity has to operate in the black. But the simple fact is, many of the things we do, you know, whether it's police, sheriff, et cetera, I mean, those are not, that's not a P&L statement. Hospitals are terribly, terribly complex. But, you know, if we can expand our tax base, and there was, you know, I wouldn't be necessarily concerned if it had to be subsidized a bit, but that's not the goal. And I think strategic partnerships, mergers, just frankly, if you're sitting on the dais representing the public, you're going to have to be open. You have to be open to what makes sense to the public.
Okay.
Natividad takes a large amount of the Monterey County budget, and I would like to see a merger. I would like to see something change with our healthcare provider, possibly have another facility, a satellite facility with a merger that makes sense, and we can work on the budget through the Natividad Hospital. Since we're paying so much money for this, I think it would be a great opportunity to have another campus that works with Natividad, or even expanding, having a third campus somewhere else. So if we can make fiscal sense of the hospital, I think we need to work towards having it be not such a drag on our local budget. So if we can focus on the budget issues of it, as well as providing excellent care for the people of Monterey Peninsula, I think everybody will be served.
Okay. Well, we are at the point where we are close to having them do their 1-minute finishing speeches. Before then, I just wanted to thank Alex Miller, Jane Parker, and Dennis Donohue. You guys conducted a great debate, discussion tonight, and we'll give them a round of applause. So, as we picked the first time, and it didn't change, we will go with Jane with a 1-minute closing speech, followed by Dennis and then Alex. So, Jane?
Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight. I think I've earned a reputation as someone who does my homework, asks questions, tries to listen to as many sides of an issue as I can find, and then tries to make a fair, balanced decision with the best interests of the community in mind for the short term and the long term. My leadership has made a positive difference in many policy areas, and there's much more to be done. My continued advocacy for good local jobs, protecting our natural resources, affordable workforce housing, violence prevention, and early childhood education will ensure all of our communities in the county are healthy, safe, and stable for future generations. Because I'm not a rubber stamp for special interests, there are powerful forces that want me out of office. I'm asking for your vote this June to continue working on your behalf, protecting Monterey County for future generations. Please check my website for the many, many endorsements I've received from Bill Monty, Assemblymember Mark Stone, former Supervisor Luke Calcagno, Central Labor Council, and I must stop there, so go to the website. Thank you.
Okay. Dennis, yours.
Yeah. When I ran for mayor, I asked everyone to imagine a great city. And now as I run for supervisor, I want to talk about delivering on a promise. And the 4th District is off course. And the reality is the endorsements I've pursued have been strategic in nature, whether it's the 4 mayors, the majority of those same councils, former Supervisor Edith Johnson, current sitting Supervisor Judge Phillips, 4-member Bill Camp, Gonzales Mayor, Maria Roscoe, Mayor of the wine capital of Monterey County. It's designed to send a signal. There's a problem, the district's off track. And we need leadership of somebody who has experience working with the community, demonstrated outcomes. The work we did on economic development and on addressing youth violence situation was validated and verified by our first selection as an All-American city, and the California League of Cities saying that our AgTech initiative was the best economic development program in the state. You know the heart I had for Salinas, I will have the same heart for District 4.
Okay. Alex, 1 minute.
As I walk door to door in my own community in Seaside and in Marina, I know that we have a lot of problems, and we need to start focusing in on the problems that we have with the people in the county. Our top priority is to take care of our people and to take care of our kids. And once we can continue to take care of our kids, we will feel safe and comfortable here in the Monterey Peninsula. I'm an outsider. I'm running against the establishment, somebody who has been in office, and we've seen the troubles that our county has faced in the last 8 years. I'm also running against the establishment in Salinas. I'm an independent person who owes nobody and doesn't have any huge contributions, so my interest at heart is to make sure that we all live in a beautiful and safe place here in the Monterey. I want to go to other communities and say, I live in Salinas, and they say, wow, Salinas is a spectacular place. Right now, schools are afraid to come to Salinas for the gang violence, and they're scared to be in Salinas, and we need to change that, and a vote for me will change that. Thank you.
Okay. So listen, folks, I want to thank you all individually, too, for coming out. It shows a lot about your civic commitment. I know you'll all vote, either vote by mail or at the election, at the polls, so thanks again. And we want to also thank our friends one last time at CUSMD at Salinas City. So you guys have been great. We appreciate it. We look forward to working with you in the fall election. Good night, now.